Imagine unearthing a World War I trench, right? You're digging through the mud and the rusted artillery shells, and suddenly you find a fully functional smartwatch.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would completely break your brain.
Exactly. And that is the exact level of historical whiplash you get when you first read the archive we are tearing into today. So welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive.
Glad to be here.
If you are listening to this, you already know the history is written by the victors. But, the most fascinating blueprints are often buried in the classified footnotes.
Very true.
Our source material today is this incredible evidence archive discovered recently on March 2nd, 2026. It's titled The Scotch Gambit.pdf.
Such a great title, by the way.
Right. Specifically, we're analyzing a section called Omens Foretold, Chapter 12, Part 4, Aneurysmic Strategic Fine-Tuning. And the reason I brought up that historical whiplash earlier is because the primary event detailed in this file takes place on April 11th, 1994.
Yeah, the time frame is what initially hooks you, but honestly, the tactical execution is what keeps you reading.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we are looking at a masterclass in asymmetric warfare and deep psychological manipulation. And it's all centered around this lone operative named Benedictus.
Okay, let's unpack this because we really need to set the physical space for this encounter. The geometry of this standoff is just crucial.
It really is.
So Benedictus is crouching in the brush along a dirt road. Approaching him is this huge dust cloud that resolves into nearly 24 motorbikes.
24 guys, that is a massive force to run into when you're alone.
Right. And the bulk of this militia stops about 100 meters back, establishing a perimeter. But 4 leaders advance to within 30 feet, they dismount, and they draw their pistols.
Yeah.
So Benedictus is entirely outgunned. He's surrounded, and he is caught completely in the open. It's like a poker player shoving all their chips into the middle of the table before even looking at their cards.
That's a really good way to put it.
If you are surrounded by guns, refusing to disarm seems like sheer madness. But is this just bravado, or is it calculated genius?
Well, what's fascinating here is how it plays out in game theory models. I mean, usually this is where the outnumbered party seeks de-escalation through submission.
Right, you put your hands up.
Exactly. It is the classic game of chicken, where one side clearly has the structural advantage, but Benedictus doesn't submit.
No, he doesn't.
He stands up, walks right into the dirt road, and speaks before any of the 4 men can even issue a command. He just says, "I'm Benedictus, the one who sent the message."
And then he says the craziest thing.
Yeah. He says, "Clearly you have the advantage. I have 2 weapons, a pistol and a blade. Don't bother asking, for they will not be seated."
See, I am hung up on that first tactical choice.
Yeah.
Why explicitly tell the people pointing guns at you that they have the advantage?
It seems counterintuitive, right?
Totally. I mean, if you refuse to disarm, you are projecting defiance.
Yeah.
But verbally yielding the tactical high ground at the same time, it just seems contradictory.
It's actually a brilliant neutralization tactic.
Right.
By stating the obvious that they hold the advantage, he completely removes their need to demonstrate it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, think about it. If he acted completely arrogant, they might feel compelled to shoot him just to prove their dominance.
Just to put him in his place.
Exactly. So by acknowledging their superior position, he flatters their tactical awareness. But simultaneously, he draws a hard boundary regarding his weapons.
He's setting the rules of engagement.
Right. He is establishing a baseline of reality. He forces the interaction out of a dominance hierarchy and into an actual negotiation.
But the second in command actually tests that boundary immediately. He basically asks why they shouldn't just drop Benedictus right there in the dirt.
And Benedictus agrees with him.
Yes. He says, "You're absolutely correct. You should not trust me and could drop me." But then he pivots to this rapid-fire deduction.
It's so good.
He points out that they aren't wearing uniforms, yet they share common patches. He reads their bearing and just casually identifies them as ex-military or highly trained law enforcement.
And notice the causal link he builds right there. He tells them that highly trained operators do not waste fuel, time, and exposure driving 24 men out to meet a single contact unless they already determined that contact offered a strategic advantage.
Wow. Yeah.
He validates their professionalism, and by doing so, he proves his own. He is holding up a mirror and basically saying, "We both know how this works, so let's skip the posturing."
He also specifically identifies the 4 men by rank and name: Captain Monroe, Lieutenant Jameson, Captain Michaelson, and Lieutenant Collins, even asking Monroe how he prefers to be addressed.
Which is not just polite conversation, by the way.
No.
Not at all. In a high-stress standoff with an irregular militia, mob mentality is your absolute greatest threat.
Oh, because anyone could just panic and pull the trigger.
Exactly. So by formally acknowledging their ranks, Benedictus mentally forces them back into a rigid military hierarchy. He is ensuring that the men with the guns look to Monroe for orders rather than acting on a twitchy trigger finger.
That's incredibly smart.
He imposes a chain of command on his captors to guarantee his own safety.
Which brings us to the blood oath. And mechanically, this is the most baffling part of this entire encounter.
It is intense.
Benedictus asks for a formal pact. Captain Monroe agrees and asks for his binding. At this point, Benedictus reaches out, grabs Monroe's right arm, pulls him forward, draws a blade, cuts Monroe's palm, switches the knife, and cuts his own palm to seal a bloody handshake.
Yeah.
Like if you were surrounded by 20 armed men, making a sudden violent movement toward their commanding officer with a knife is a great way to get instantly killed. How does he survive the next 2 seconds?
He survives through proximity and sensory overload.
Oh, so.
Well, the archive explicitly notes that Benedictus performs this action extremely close to Monroe. He pulls Monroe into his own physical space, effectively using the captain's body to block the line of sight of the other shooters.
Else they literally can't see the knife.
Right. And the suddenness of the act, combined with the extreme intimacy of the violence, creates this momentary shockwave. The men don't shoot because they can't process whether Monroe is being attacked or if he is participating in a ritual.
And Monroe absorbs the shock completely. He just gets on his radio and tells his men to stand down.
It's wild.
That extreme, intimate violence forges an absolute, unquestionable trust. But securing his own survival is pointless if they don't have a tactical answer for why they are out here in the first place.
Exactly.
This tense alliance immediately forces the question, what is the common enemy that is terrifying a heavily armed battalion of ex-military survivalists?
And this is where it gets into sci-fi territory. The enemy relies on highly advanced, automated combat robotics.
Seriously.
Monroe shares the grim arithmetic of their previous encounter. His camp managed to destroy one of these machines, but the cost was catastrophic. The unit wiped out 10 highly trained operators in 5 minutes.
10 men in 5 minutes, that's a slaughter.
And it took 30 men concentrating fire to finally disable it.
Wait, the archive date for this event is April 1994. Advanced power-draining combat robots wiping out squads in 1994. That throws a massive wrench into our historical timeline.
It really does.
It's like finding a smartphone buried in a World War I trench, like I said earlier.
Oh.
What are we actually dealing with here? Monroe's technicians were tracking these units via EMF, electromagnetic frequency disruption patterns.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the mechanics of that tracking are fascinating because it grounds the science fiction element into a very gritty, logistical reality.
How do you mean?
Well, the militia noticed the machines moving northwest, tracking a specific disruption pattern. Their working theory is that these units function like a parasitic load on the local infrastructure.
Okay.
When the robots need extra operational capability, they inductively drain power from nearby high-voltage lines or industrial equipment. They aren't running on magic infinite batteries. They are siphoning the existing 1994 power grid.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the militia isn't just outgunned. They are fighting an enemy that literally consumes the environment around them to become stronger.
It's exactly.
When you lose 10 men in 5 minutes to something like that, you are surviving an extermination. But Benedictus completely flips the script.
He really does.
He reveals he doesn't just know about the robots. He controls one. He has a reprogrammed recon unit he calls Gambit.
And he says Gambit looks like the Incredible Hulk, essentially.
Right.
This is the critical difference between asymmetric capability and asymmetric information. The militia knows what the machines do. They're highly effective killers. But Benedictus knows how the operating system works.
He's inside the machine.
Exactly. He hasn't built a better weapon. He has simply hacked the apex predator of the battlefield and turned it into a subordinate asset.
But introducing Gambit brings up a pretty brutal admission of collateral damage.
Oh, yeah. This part is incredibly tense.
Monroe, who is fishing for intelligence, asks if Benedictus has actually seen the robots in action recently. And Benedictus bluntly admits that a few days prior, one of Monroe's own men was tracking Gambit in the woods trying to kill the robot.
Yeah.
So, to protect his asset, Benedictus had to eliminate Monroe's scout. He looks the captain in the eye and admits to killing his subordinate.
You would expect the newly formed alliance to shatter right there.
Exactly. I anticipated Monroe drawing his weapon again.
But Monroe's reaction is deeply pragmatic. He expresses regret, but he states the scout was operating under general orders to hunt the machines.
General orders. Wow.
It demonstrates the cold calculus of command. The overarching threat of this robotic enemy is so severe that Monroe is willing to compartmentalize the death of his own man.
He's just to swallow it.
He absorbs the loss because Benedictus's expertise is the only viable path to survival for the rest of his camp.
So with the air cleared, Benedictus calls Damon out of the tree line. The archive describes the unit emerging, massive, and imposing, and it had spent the entire standoff just running scans and building tactical maps.
Very efficient.
Right. Now that they have a functioning alliance and a reprogrammed heavy unit, they shift from survival to offense. But they don't plan an assault on the enemy's main stronghold. They target a supply line.
Right. Monroe briefs Benedictus on a rail line leading directly to a walled industrial complex. And this complex acts as the enemy's central distribution hub.
Okay.
3 main tracks branch out from this fortress. And the critical variable is a scheduled freight run. It's a 70-car train with 2 engines, currently operating on an alternating schedule, due to cross their sector at exactly 2100 hours that evening.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I want to dig into a very specific piece of dialogue here because I think it defines the entire doctrine of guerrilla logistics.
Let's hear it.
Earlier in the conversation, Benedictus asks Monroe, do you drink pure grain alcohol straight, or do you dilute it?
It seems like a throwaway line at first.
It does, but think about the physiological mechanism of alcohol. If you drink pure grain alcohol straight, the concentration overwhelms your liver, shuts down your nervous system, and kills you. The enemy's walled fortress is the pure grain.
Right. Taking a direct frontal assault against an entrenched, technologically superior force is tactical suicide. You dilute the pure grain by attacking the periphery. By targeting the logistical supply lines, the veins that feed the fortress, you force the enemy to spread their concentrated power outward to defend thousands of miles of track. You starve the stronghold before you ever have to cite it.
Now, if you are listening to this, you are probably wondering why a hyper-advanced robotic shadow army cares about local civilian train schedules. It sounds absurd on its face. Why don't they just fly supplies in or use armored convoys?
Because true dominance hides in plain sight. The archive explicitly states that locals had lived near these rail lines for decades, assuming they were just regular freight operations carrying coal or timber.
Or just everyday trains.
Exactly. Like most people, they had no idea that they were being taken over from within. The enemy's camouflage is the mundane routine of civilian infrastructure. They obey the traffic lights to avoid drawing the attention of national militaries.
And that rigid adherence to routine is the exact vulnerability Benedictus exploits. Lieutenant Collins details that there are 5 grade crossings before the train reaches the city limits. Each crossing is controlled by a relatively new RCM, a railway crossing mechanism.
Yeah.
So Benedictus's plan is to put Delmont, the reprogrammed heavy combat unit, into the engineer's seat to hijack the train.
But the hijacking isn't the primary goal, right? It's the delivery system. An RCM is not just a physical boom gate dropping over a road. It is a data node connected to the broader rail network.
Oh, so it's a computer access point.
Exactly. By taking over the crossing mechanisms along the route, Damont can access the telemetry of the rail network. He's going to spoof the system, tricking the fortress's internal signal boxes into registering the hijacked train as a friendly, scheduled asset operating exactly as expected.
And Benedictus leaves absolutely zero margin for error regarding the environment either. He notes that at approximately 1600 hours, there will be a new moon.
So it's going to be incredibly dark.
Less than 2% illumination until dawn. He is weaponizing the lunar cycle to ensure the massive 70-car train moves through the valley in near total darkness.
That's brilliant.
Masking the visual evidence of the hijacking while the spoof telemetry handles the digital camouflage.
It is systemic subversion at its finest. Every element of the enemy's strength, their reliance on automated logistics, their integration into civilian infrastructure, their rigid scheduling is inverted and used as the weapon against them.
Which brings us to the most enigmatic piece of this entire document. The manifesto at the end.
Yes, the poem.
The archive concludes with a cryptic poem titled Strategic Fine-Tuning, the Scotch Gambit. It reads like an esoteric battle hymn, heavily steeped in chess metaphors and medieval imagery.
It's very dramatic.
It speaks of a plan of 8 ending in checkmate and mentions a compass, a tuning fork, and a broadsword. So, what does this all mean? The poem literally says you won't know the pawn. It feels like a massive chess metaphor where Daemon, the robot driving the hijacked train, is the ultimate Trojan horse pawn, being escorted right into the enemy's back rank.
This raises an important question, though, because the title itself, the Scotch Gambit, is a direct reference to chess. A gambit involves sacrificing material, usually a pawn, to gain a rapid developmental advantage and control the center of the board. Benedictus isn't just stealing a train, he is executing a massive sacrifice play.
But the line that demands the most scrutiny is verse 2, where it references a Scottish caged hilt split down to the square.
This is such a great detail.
If you look at the physical geometry of a Scottish caged hilt on a broadsword, it is a basket of steel that completely encloses and protects the hand wielding the weapon.
Apply that metaphor to the logistics of the heist. The 70-car train is the caged hilt. Dumont, the operative force, is the hand inside.
Wow.
The train provides thousands of tons of moving steel as physical armor, entirely concealing the payload until the weapon is already inside the enemy's guard. By the time the fortress realizes the blade is in their ribs, it is far too late to block the thrust.
And the chorus of the poem practically taunts the enemy with this reality. It says, "We won't knock, you won't have locked door or locked up gate. We'll be welcomed in to seal your fate."
Welcomed in, that is the terrifying beauty of the strategy. They do not need explosives to breach the walls of the industrial hub.
No forced entry at all.
Right. By hacking the RCMs and driving the scheduled train on the scheduled track, the automated defense systems of the fortress will literally open the gates for them.
Unbelievable.
Benedictus further notes in the poem, I'm sure you have equipment to see, I'll have that covered, of that, believe me. He already knows they use EMF tracking and automated sensors, and he has factored that telemetry spoofing into the approach.
When you zoom out and look at the entirety of the Scotch Gambit, the practical applications for navigating deeply entrenched, overwhelmingly powerful systems are staggering.
They really are.
Think about your own professional environment or industry. When you find yourself vastly out-resourced by a competitor or an institution, frontal assaults are a waste of capital. Do not drink the pure grain straight. You will lose the war of attrition.
You have to find their RCMs. Look for the mundane, automated routines that your adversaries rely on to maintain their scale.
That is such great advice.
Large, powerful entities survive on predictability and rigid schedules. If you can understand the telemetry of their routine, you don't need to break down their doors. You figure out how to format your approach so that their own automated systems categorize you as a benefit, opening the gates for you.
The blood oath at the beginning of the file teaches us that you dictate your own value in a negotiation, regardless of how many guns are pointed at you. But the train heist teaches us that true leverage comes from turning the enemy's infrastructure into your own delivery mechanism.
It forces a profound reevaluation of what constitutes a battlefield. The most devastating strikes don't happen in the open dirt. They happen along the supply lines, buried in the data of daily operations.
Which leaves a lingering, deeply unsettling mystery to chew on as we wrap up. We are studying a file discovered in 2026 that meticulously details an event from April 1994.
Right.
A shadow war involving parasitic combat robots, EMF tracking fields, and high-stakes guerrilla train hijackings, all fought completely unnoticed by the general public. The locals thought it was just a coal train.
Because the trains ran on time, the routine was maintained, so the invasion was invisible.
So, the next time you are stuck at a railway crossing, waiting for a massive freight train to roll through the dark, or you look out over the industrial sprawl of your city, you have to wonder, what other automated infrastructures, power grids, and supply chains operating quietly in the background of our world right now might secretly be the logistics network of an unseen conflict? What kind of shadow wars are you completely oblivious to, simply because the traffic lights are working and the routine is unbroken?